Hey y'all, it's Brandy TC from the blog and YouTube channel Bless Her Health, and you can also find me on Instagram at PremedMomGetsFit. So I just started an MCAT series. If you missed the first video, it was basically my MCAT story. I am taking MCAT round 3 in September thanks to health issues the first 2 times. And so I wanted to do a series about the MCAT and any advice or tidbits or tricks or tips or anything that I can share with you guys that I've learned through the past couple years of studying for this test, and along the way, because I'm still taking it in September, so I'm still in the trenches with you guys taking this test. This is the second video, and I wanted to discuss creating an MCAT schedule, and I cannot tell you how important it is to create a MCAT study schedule. A lot of people think, I'll just study, I don't need a schedule. The problem is this test is really big and very important. And if you just go into it blind of like, oh, I've got these books, so I'm just gonna start reading them, you're gonna lose track of time and you're not gonna be able to get the whole picture because maybe you only cover part of the content because you didn't realize how much time you had and what all you needed to do in that time period. So it's very important to structurally lay out how you're going to study for this test. The other thing is a lot of people look up study schedules online, and I don't necessarily have a problem with this. I think they're great templates, and I think some of them are really good study schedules. The Student Doctor Network is a really good one. Exam Crackers has a really good one. But I don't think that everybody should use a pre-created study schedule. The problem is they don't account for your individual needs. And you are studying for this test so you can get into medical school. So you need to do it the best way for you. And you're not going to find a template online that's going to have exactly what you need. There's 3 very important things. Sorry, I'm a little sweaty. I just got done working out. Sorry about that. So there's 3 very important things when creating your study schedule. That is time, the resources, and your strengths and weaknesses. So your individuality. So starting with time, this is twofold. There's your long-term time. So how many months are you allotting for studying? What time of the year are you going to study? When are you studying? When do you need to have this test? And then the other part of that is how much time do you have a day to study? So let's start with the first part. Most people take this test over the summer, and it's kind of twofold. One, med school applications open in June, so you want to have your score as close to your application as possible. It also tells you, well, one, a lot of people are not going to look at your application without an MCAT score. And 2, knowing what your MCAT score is will help you decide what schools to apply for. Because if you made a decent score, you're probably not going to apply to Harvard if you have a decent GPA and a decent MCAT score. And you don't want to waste time applying to schools that aren't the right fit for you. So a lot of people take it over the summer because med school applications open up over the summer, and also for the fact that you're not in classes. And I think that's very important. Not only are they time consuming, but also they take away some of your memory and some of your brain power that you need to use for this MCAT. So it can be a hindrance to take classes in MCAT study. Is it possible? Absolutely. But it's not ideal. So study schedules usually say 3 to 6 months. I do not recommend studying for longer than 6 months. I also don't recommend studying like in your freshman year when you're going to be applying as a junior. 1, you don't want your MCAT score to expire. 2, you probably haven't taken the classes yet, and that is essential. I get that question a lot. Take the classes before you study for the MCAT. And you want to study for the MCAT as soon after the classes as you possibly can, because you want all that information fresh. So second part of time is how much time a day can you give to MCAT studying? And this you need to be very honest and realistic about. How much time can you really study in a day? Some people can do 12 hours in a library in a day, and that's fantastic. I'm actually jealous of those people because I can't do that. But you need to look at your day, maybe write it in a journal for a week, what you do all day, what your week is like, where you can cut, what you can move, and where you can fit in MCAT scheduling, and figure out how much MCAT studying you can do. And this is going to be different for different people, and this is also going to affect how long you study. You're not going to do 6 months of 12 hours a day. You're going to get burned out. But you're not going to do 2 months of 2 hours a day because it's just not enough. So these two time elements play in with each other, and you need to figure out how much time can you realistically study for this test? How much time do you need to study for it, and how much time can you study for it? For me, it varies. I do 2 hours at nap time, and I study when the kids go to bed, which can range from an hour to 5 hours. It all depends on how tired I am, because we all know that when you get very tired, your brain shuts down and you just don't retain information anymore, and anything past that is waste. So my days are not set. I don't do 8 hours every day or 6 hours or 2 hours. I do what I can when I can. And that's fine if you're the same way. You just need to figure out how much a week you can possibly give, and you create your schedule around that. Because if you put too much into that day and that week and you just realistically don't have the time to do it, you're going to get behind your own schedule, you're going to get overwhelmed, and you're going to get stressed out, and you're going to fall apart. So you need to create a study schedule that's very realistic of how much time is this assignment going to take? Do I have that time? Time is very, very important for your study schedule. The second thing is your resources. And I'm actually, the next video, I'm going to go into resources. I'm going to go into the different books, what I personally use, give my review on each one of the study books. Exam cracker books are really thin. Again, in the next video, I'll go over whether that's good or bad. But obviously, with the Princeton books being thicker, they're going to take more time than the exam cracker books, which are thinner. So what resources you're using, how many resources you're using, are you using 3 different sets of books, are you using 1 set of books? That's going to play into how much study time you're going to need. The last thing is your strengths and weaknesses. And this is very, very important, but can be difficult to figure out in the beginning. So this is something that's going to be fluid, and you're going to need to change your study schedule as you develop what your strengths and weaknesses are. If you look at any MCAT study schedule out there, they're going to tell you to take a diagnostic exam. I agree and disagree with this. So I don't like diagnostics for the fact that they can make you very discouraged seeing this extremely low score, and I don't think you should start off your studying feeling beat down and discouraged that you can't do this, look how horrible my score is, I'll never get better than that. And also taking a huge 7-hour practice MCAT when you've never experienced it and you've never studied for it, it's just going to scare you, and I think that is not very smart. It's going to set you up in the beginning of beating yourself up and feeling down and not feeling confident. And one of the biggest things about MCAT is not being scared of it, being confident, being self-assured, and destroying the intimidation of the MCAT. Because if you go into it intimidated, it's going to control you, and you need to go in there and think, this is the test, I've got it. And if you start off intimidated, it's going to be even harder to break. I am not a fan of diagnostics. However, you do need to figure out your strengths and weaknesses, and part of that you can do without a diagnostic. How strong are you in biology, chemistry, organic, biochem, physics? How recently have you taken the classes? I haven't taken the classes in 8 to 10 years. Check out my pre-med story if you want to know why. Me, content is my weakest, and that's where I need to put my most time and energy. If someone is an undergrad and has just taken the classes, excelled in all of them, really understands the material, then content's going to be their strength, and then they need to focus on the beast of the MCAT, of the critical thinking, of timing your test taking, of just understanding the way that the MCAT asks questions, learning how to read passages, analyzing data. So if they're really good at content, then they need to work on the test taking part of the MCAT and understanding the MCAT as an exam. I, on the other hand, that's my strength because I've taken MCAT over and over, and I'm really good at critical thinking, but that's because I practice my butt off and I understand the test part. So my study schedule is going to look vastly different from their study schedule because my study schedule is mostly content review with a little bit of practice, whereas they're going to do a little bit of content review and a lot of practice. So you need to understand your strengths and weaknesses, and part of that's intuitive and how you reflect on yourself and be able to look at yourself and say, I'm good at this and I'm bad at that. And that's what I need to work on. Because if you're like, let's say that you're fantastic in physics, physics is your bread and butter, you could do physics in your sleep, then you're not going to spend a month studying for physics. That is a waste of your time that you could be using on organic if you're not good at organic. So you need to be honest with yourself and figure out where you excel and where you struggle. Are you a slow test taker? If you are, then you need to be working on timing. You need to be timing yourself every time you do a practice test and getting faster and eliminating anything that keeps you from taking the test faster. If you need to do a diagnostic to figure this out, then that's great. Do a diagnostic exam or take a random practice exam and use that to figure out your strengths and weaknesses. My only thing with that is don't look at the score. I mean, see how many questions you get wrong in biology or how many questions you did wrong in this and really reflect. I ran out of time on this section. I didn't understand what they were asking. I had a hard time reading the passages and applying them to the questions. Really reflect on how and what you got wrong, but don't worry about the score. Throw the score away because it's a diagnostic. You haven't even started studying. It means nothing. Don't let it waver your confidence and don't let it scare you and intimidate you. Do verbal passages. That's a great way. Verbal is very great. I mean, the whole reason of the verbal section is for critical thinking and analysis. So time a verbal test. This has nothing to do with content. And see how well you do on it. See if you ran out of time or if you had extra time or if you were able to do the questions well or if you were struggling with the passage and the question format. And see how you do on that and let that tell you where your strengths and weaknesses are. And then you're going to create your study schedule to reflect those strengths and weaknesses. Obviously, you don't want to completely ignore your strengths. Play into it. I like to do verbal because that's my strength. So when I'm feeling down on myself, when I'm feeling discouraged or I feel like I'm not doing very well or my confidence starts wavering, I do some verbal passages because I'm good at verbal and it makes me feel good about myself. So throw those strengths into your study schedule. And plus you need to touch on the subjects just to touch on them, just to be sure that you're doing well in them and that you can understand them in the MCAT format. Throw them in there, but spend the majority of your time on your weaknesses and also look at the MCAT structure. The MCAT is 25% verbal, 25% behavioral, 25%. It's like 25 or 20% biochem. Biochem is the hugest section on this new. And organic and physics is the littlest section. So you're going to plan your study schedule based on what is most prevalent on the MCAT, what is the most important, and what you need the most help with. Because the thing about the MCAT is it doesn't matter what you get wrong and what you get right. It's a numbers game. You want to get as much right as possible, the highest score as possible. Look at your time in your day, your time overall, when you're planning on taking it, what resources you're using, and where your strengths and weaknesses are. And then you need to sit down and create a study schedule. Plan out. Look at your whole picture. What all do you want to accomplish in the 3-6 months that you're studying for the MCAT? Well, I want to do 8 practice tests and I want to do the exam crackers books. Okay, then break it down into pieces. I do practice exams on the weekends because my husband is home. He can watch the kids and I can do practice exams. Or I break it into things. Most people say to take a whole practice exam and I agree with them. But do what works for you. I might do only the chemical physical section and then another time do the biological section because I don't have the time or the ability to sit still for 8-9 hours and take a practice exam with 3 kids and a husband who needs me. So I do the sections because I can do a 90-minute section. I can do that in their nap time. Figure out what your day looks like. Figure out what all you want to accomplish in your time. Break it into tiny pieces that are honest and realistic because if you overwhelm yourself, you're going to stress yourself out, and that's the last thing you want. And then figure out what needs the most importance of where you need to focus your time and energy because what is your strengths and weaknesses. And write it out and let it change. If you find that you're doing really well in physics and you don't need to study as much, don't study as much. Focus where you need to focus. If you find that you put too little parts in your day, do more each day. Putting too much in your day, then reschedule it so that you can do an honest amount. Play with it, but make sure you get done what you need to get done. You need content review and you need practice. Whether one is more important than the other, that's up to you. but make sure that you have a big idea of what needs to get done, and then you break it into smaller pieces, and every day do something. Make your study schedule, so feel free to reach out with me and I will help you in any way that I can. I hope you guys have a great day.